In the brutal tale of Roman history, few stories reveal human cruelty and desperation as strikingly as Sporus. This was a beautiful young boy whose life became entwined with one of history's most infamous emperors. It's not just a story of political plots or army battles, it's a chilling look at how power can strip away humanity, leaving behind only the twisted drama of imperial whims. Sporus's tale plays out like a nightmare in the grand marble halls of ancient Rome. Here, love and possession, honor and disgrace, blurred together under the mad gaze of Nero. It was the year 65 AD, and the Roman Empire spread from Britain all the way to the Euphrates, its strength seemingly boundless under Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus. Yet, within the lavish walls of his golden palace, darkness lurked, ready to engulf an innocent young life. At just 28, Nero had already shocked Rome with his wild performances, lavish building projects, and erratic relationships with those around him. The city bore the scars of the Great Fire of 64 AD, and whispers of the emperor's madness floated through the streets like smoke from the still smoldering ruins. In this world of luxury and casual cruelty, young Sporus lived as a freedman in the imperial household. Although technically free, he had little defense against the caprices of absolute power. Historical records paint him as incredibly beautiful, with delicate features and a graceful presence that would mark him out for both glory and tragedy. He drew the attention of the imperial court, not through ambition, but merely by being in a world where beauty could be a source of suffering. Sporus's fall began with the death of a woman, Pompeia Sabina, Nero's second wife and the great love of his chaotic life, who passed away under mysterious conditions in 65 AD. Some ancient writers claim that Nero killed her in a fit of rage, kicking her while she was pregnant, while others suggest it was complications during childbirth. Whatever the truth, her death left Nero heartbroken, a grief that would soon twist into something darker. His mourning grew obsessive as Nero was desperate. He wanted to bring back or replace the woman he claimed to love above all else. Amid his grief, fate brought Sporus into Nero's view. Whether it was chance or fate, the young freedman caught the emperor's eye. Nero was struck by how much Sporus resembled his late wife. According to ancient historians like Cassius Dio and Suetonius, Nero became obsessed with this similarity. He saw Sporus's delicate features as a way to somehow reclaim what death had taken from him. The emperor's sorrow twisted into a plan so shocking it would astonish even the most hardened folks in imperial Rome. When he made his decision, it was quick and irreversible. Nero ordered that Sporus be castrated, permanently changing the young man's body to fit the emperor's dark desires. This act was more than just a physical injury. It erased Sporus's identity as a man, turning him into something that existed only for Nero's comfort. The procedure happened in the sterile luxury of the palace's medical quarters, where the sounds of pain were muffled by marble walls. Any protests from the boy were dismissed as the trivial complaints of property. After the mutilation, the true horror of Nero's plan emerged. He announced he was going to marry Sporus in a public ceremony, treating the traumatized young man as a stand-in for his beloved Pompeia. This wasn't marriage as the Romans knew it. It was a twisted mockery that broke every social, religious, and legal custom of the empire. Sporus was given a new name, Sabina, after the late empress, and was dressed in elegant women's clothing, adorned with jewels that had once belonged to Pompey. Nero commanded his household to treat Sporus like the empress, calling him by feminine titles and following all the proper protocols for an imperial wife. The wedding itself was a spectacle of madness, witnessed by horrified onlookers in Roman society. Sporus, barely recognizable in his elaborate feminine attire, went through the traditional Roman marriage rituals, while Nero acted as the devoted groom. Ancient accounts describe the ceremony as both grand and deeply unsettling, with the lavishness of a real imperial wedding hiding its true horror. There was a real horror lurking beneath the surface. Guests had to pretend everything was fine, offering their congratulations and gifts. But inside, they were horrified by the emperor's disturbing spectacle. After the bizarre wedding, Sporus was put on display throughout Rome as Nero's empress, forced to attend public events in feminine attire. The young man had become completely reliant on Nero's protection and had no option but to play his part. He went with Nero to the theater, to official functions, and even to intimate dinners, showcased like a prized possession, a living reminder of a woman who had died. The mental strain of living as someone else, especially someone dead, was likely unbearable, and to top it off, that death might have been caused by the very man who now claimed to cherish her memory. People in Rome witnessed their emperor alongside a stunning young woman, but they knew the unsettling truth behind it all. Some historians point out that while the Romans were used to the emperor's oddities, this display really unsettled them. Sporus, dressed as an empress yet bearing signs of his true self and surgical alterations, was a constant reminder of Nero's moral decline. He became a living symbol of how power can twist not just a person, but reality itself. The connection between Nero and Sporus, if you could call it that, was marked by the emperor's possessive obsession and Sporus's utter lack of power. Nero treated Sporus as both a beloved wife and a prized item, showering him with attention while stripping him of any identity beyond being a stand-in for his deceased spouse. He would call Sporus by his dead wife's name, expecting him to act like her. This psychological torment, demanding that he take on someone else's identity while erasing his own, was a cruelty that went beyond physical pain. Ancient writings give us glimpses into this strange relationship, with Suetonius noting how Nero would take Sporus on tours. Greece showcased Sporus to foreign leaders and wealthy Greeks as his empress. These trips must have been incredibly tough for him. He had to keep up his feminine act in strange places, surrounded by people who either believed it or just pretended to. It was like being trapped in a cage, unable to show his real self or share his true feelings. The pressure was relentless. Nero's treatment of Sporus revealed his own deep issues. His love for Pompey had been possessive and often violent, and now, with Sporus, it was just as intense. The emperor would explode in anger if Sporus didn't perfectly mirror the memory of his late wife, punishing him for things that only existed in Nero's messed-up mind. But there were tender moments too. Nero showered Sporus with lavish gifts and affection, just like he had with Pompey. This cycle of love and abuse must have been devastating for Sporus. As time went on, the oddity of this situation became clear to everyone in the palace. Servants and courtiers had to figure out how to address Sporus as an empress while knowing the truth. They saw the daily humiliations and the toll it took on him. Some felt sorry for him, while others were disgusted, but everyone played a part in keeping up the elaborate lie that supported Nero's fragile emotions. The strain of living like this showed in every part of Sporus's life. He had to wear women's clothes all the time, speak like a proper empress, and engage in activities that reinforced this false identity. The surgeries he had undergone made some parts of this easier, but they were also a constant reminder of everything he had lost. Every movement, every gesture, every word had to be just right to keep up the illusion of being the woman Nero wanted. The political fallout of Nero's actions didn't go unnoticed by the Roman Senate and the wider aristocracy. Nero's marriage to Sporus was another sign that he was losing touch with reality and had little respect for Roman customs and values. While few spoke out against him directly, private letters and talks from that time showed how shocked and disgusted many Romans were. Seeing their emperor flaunting a castrated boy dressed like his deceased wife was viewed as a symbol of the moral decline creeping into their government. This strange situation dragged on for years, with Sporus stuck in the role of Nero's fake empress. He couldn't escape or even share how he really felt about what was happening to him. The psychological scars from being forced into this identity, coupled with the trauma of his castration and the stress of keeping up appearances, took a visible toll on Sporus. Accounts from that time suggest he grew more withdrawn and sad, but he had no option but to keep playing his part. Nero's attachment to Sporus became so deep that at times he genuinely thought he had brought his beloved wife back to life. This belief created some tender moments between them, but it also heightened the horror of Sporus's existence. He wasn't just acting, he was expected to become someone else, to the point that he might even forget who he once was. The psychological mess of their relationship, filled with love, obsession, cruelty, and delusion, was complicated, even by the standards of an era known for excess. As Nero's reign went on, political tensions across the empire built up to a breaking point. His focus on theatrical antics, neglect of his duties, and erratic behavior alienated many supporters and gave enemies the courage to rise against him. Military leaders in various provinces began to doubt their loyalty to an emperor who seemed more interested in dressing up with a castrated boy than in running the vast territories he controlled. The sight of Sporus, adorned in imperial clothing and treated like an empress, became a symbol of Nero's failing leadership. By 68 AD, the political scene finally crumbled, with the Praetorian Guard, the Senate, and several provincial governors taking action. People opposed Nero's rule, and with everyone turning against him, he faced the reality of a painful death if caught. So, he fled Rome with a small group of loyal followers, including Sporus. Sporus, a young man who had no say in his fate, now found himself tied to a king on the brink of collapse. His survival depended on Nero, a man capable of terrible cruelty for his own desires. In the final days of Nero's reign, chaos reigned. Rebellions and plans to overthrow the emperor filled the air, and Nero's actions grew more unpredictable. He swung between dreams of escape and outrageous ideas for a dramatic exit. Through all this, Sporus stayed by his side, still dressed in feminine clothes, and playing the part of the devoted empress. Even as the empire crumbled, he must have understood that his fate was tangled up with Nero's. When Nero inevitably fell, Sporus realized his own downfall might come with it. In June 68 AD, Nero took his own life, allegedly with his secretary's help, but Sporus didn't find freedom. Instead, his nightmare took a new turn. As a living symbol of Nero's excess, he became a prize for those competing for control in the chaotic aftermath. Sporus was passed around like an object, each new powerful figure with their own plans for him, ignoring his humanity. The new emperor, Galba, took Sporus along with other remnants of Nero's court. This didn't free him, it was just another transaction where he had no say. Once a free citizen, then a plaything, Sporus became a symbol of conquest for anyone who could claim him. Under Galba, his situation remained unstable and humiliating. Though Galba lacked Nero's flair for the dramatic, he still saw value in possessing Sporus. Sporus was a living reminder of the past reign. He lived in a sort of luxurious captivity, needing to keep up his feminine looks, but he wasn't treated like an empress anymore. This in-between existence, neither fully male nor female, neither free nor a true servant, neither respected nor completely tossed aside, must have been mentally crushing. He had already been through years of losing his identity. After Nero's death, times were shaky, a chaotic period known as the Year of the Four Emperors. Sporus's fate was uncertain, as different factions quickly rose and fell. When Galba was killed in January 69 AD, Sporus was handed over to a new ruler again. Now he was like an imperial piece of property, passed around like fine furniture or a valuable painting. Each handoff came with new worries and fresh embarrassments, forcing him to bend to the wishes of each new master. After Galba, Emperor Otho briefly took power and seemed to treat Sporus kindly, perhaps seeing a bit of himself in the young man's tough spot. But Otho's reign ended quickly, just a few months later, and he too was defeated and took his own life. Once again, Sporus faced the frightening chance of ending up with another new ruler. Each transition chipped away at whatever dignity and identity he had left. When Emperor Vitellius took over, things got even worse. He saw Sporus as entertainment for the Roman crowd and planned to have him appear in the arena, not as a gladiator, but in a twisted reenactment of the myth where Persephone is abducted and violated. This was the lowest point for Sporus. He would have to play the part of a woman being sexually assaulted for the enjoyment of thousands. The thought of this final humiliation was unbearable for him. After years of forced feminization, loss of identity, and sexual exploitation, being put on display like that was more than he could handle. Sporus reached a breaking point. Ancient accounts tell us he chose death over enduring the ultimate shame. He took his own life before Vitellius could put his cruel plan into action. In that final moment, Sporus reclaimed the one thing that had been denied to him throughout his suffering: the power to decide his fate. His suicide marked the end of one of the most unsettling chapters in Roman history. Most people didn't mourn him, nor did they see his death as a major political event. He had been so dehumanized that his passing was hardly noted, primarily seen as a minor hiccup in Vitellius's entertainment schedule. Yet, by choosing death rather than further humiliation, Sporus showed a bravery and dignity that had been stripped from him for years. His last act was a rejection of the role he was forced to play, and a statement of his fundamental humanity. Sporus's story pushes us to face the uncomfortable truths about power and humanity's capacity for both cruelty and survival. In a world where absolute authority could turn a free young man into a living doll, where identity could be altered to satisfy a madman's whims, we see the darkest sides of unchecked power. Sporus's tragedy wasn't just personal. It reflected a system that cared for people only as far as they could meet the desires of those in power. His story reminds us that behind the grand tales of empires, there are countless individual tragedies of people who couldn't fight against the forces that shaped their lives. His experiences highlight the vulnerable among Roman society, like freedmen and slaves, whose lives could be destroyed on a whim by the powerful. The very fact that we know his story at all shows its uniqueness, but it also hints that similar, but perhaps less dramatic, abuses were likely common in a society based on strict hierarchies and the emperor's absolute power. Modern readers might wonder how such cruelty was possible. How could a society accept or even celebrate this level of dehumanization? Yet, Sporus's tale also shows us the incredible strength of the human spirit is undeniable. It can withstand unimaginable pain while still holding on to who we are deep down. His final choice, though sad, was a kind of victory. It showed he wouldn't let himself be completely shattered, even by forces that seemed all-powerful. When we think about Sporus, we remember not just what he went through, but also his powerful stand against those who tried to strip away his humanity.